Assalamu alaikum. I'm Muhammad Qasim from Department of Computer Science, Allama Iqbal Open University. Today we will study our 7th unit of our course, Information Security. In this unit we will study various security issues related to data and various applications. Application issues, database and data warehousing issues, data and information storage issues, knowledge-based system, and system development controls all will be discussed in this unit. Application issues. Organizations are facing various challenges that arise from connecting their system to network of all shapes and sizes, from office local area network to global internet, as well as from distributed computing environment. These challenges come in form of malicious code, threats such as mobile code object, viruses, worms, and denial of service attacks. Local non-distributed environment issues. Individual computer system store and execute programs to perform function for local user. Such tasks generally involve networked applications that provide access to remote resources such as web servers and remote file servers. Other interactive networked activities such as the transmission and reception of electronic emails. The key characteristics of non-distributed system is that all user executed code is stored on the local system, on a file system accessible to that machine, such as file server on the machine's LAN, and executed using processor on that machine. Viruses are the oldest form of malicious code object that plague cyberspace. Once they are in the system, they attach themselves to legitimate operating system and user file and applications. Normally perform some sort of undesirable actions ranging from somewhat harmless display and of the annoying message on the screen to more malicious, destructive of entire local file system. Before the advent of network computing, viruses spread from system to system through infected media. For example, suppose a user hard disk drive is infected with a virus with some data files in it. That user might then format a disk and eventually transfer the virus to it along with some data files. When the user interact with when user and insert that media to another system and read data, that system would also become infected with the virus. The virus might then get spread to several other user systems who go on to share it with even more users as an exponential fashion. A Trojan horse is a malicious code object that appear to be benevolent programs such as a game or a simple utility. When a user executes the application, it performs the cover function and advertised. However, electronic Trojan horses also carry an unknown payload. While the computer user is using a new program, the Trojan horse performs some sort of malicious actions, such as opening a security hole in the system for hacker to exploit, tampering with data, or installing keystroke monitoring software. Malicious code objects that lie dormant until event occur that satisfy one or more logical condition. At that time, they spring into action, delivering their malicious payload to unsuspecting computer users, often planted by derogant employees or other individuals who want to harm an organization. For one or more reason might want to delay the malicious activity for a period of time. Worms spread from system to system bearing some type of malicious payload. Virus must be shared. Virus must be shared to propagate. Worms are self-replacing or replicating. Resident and memory are exploit one or more networking vulnerability to spread from system to system under their own power. And distributed environment computing allows a single user to harness the computing power of one or more remote system to achieve a single goal. A very common example of this is the client server interaction that take place when a computer user browses the World Wide Web. Agents are intelligent code objects that perform action on behalf of user. Agents typically take initial instruction from the user and then carry on their activity in an unattended manner for a predetermined period of time until certain conditions are met or for an indefinite period. Webbot agent continuously crawl a variety of websites, retrieving and processing data on behalf of the user. For example, a user interested in finding a low fare airfare between two cities might program an intelligent agent to score a variety of airline and travel websites and continuously check fare prices. Whenever the agent detects a fare lower than previous fare, it might send the user an email message, pager alert, or other notification of the cheaper travel opportunity. More adventurous bot programmers might even provide the agent with the credit card information and instruct it to actually order a ticket when a fare reaches a certain level. Applets are code objects sent from a user system to query and process data stored on remote system. Applet perform the opposite function. These code objects are sent from the server to the client to perform some action. In fact, applets are actually self-contained miniature programs that execute independently of the server that sent them. These applets are also vulnerable to some security threats. Object Request Broker. Towards distributing computing, the Object Management Group (OMG) sent out to develop a common standard for developers around the world. The result of their work, known as the Common Object Request Broker Architecture (CORBA), define an international standard sanctioned by the International Organization for Standardization for Distributed Computing. It defines the sequence of instruction or interaction between the client and server. Clients do not need specific knowledge of the server location or technical detail to interact with. They simply pass their request for a particular object to a local object. Request broker using a well-defined interface. These interfaces are created using OMG interface definition language. The ORB in turn invoke the appropriate object, keeping the implementation detail transparent to the original client. Component model. Dividing force behind OMG or deriving force behind OMG and for efforts to implement CORBA was the desire to create a common standard that enable non-vendor specific interaction. Microsoft decided to develop its own proprietary standard for object management, that is COM or DCOM, the component object model, as Microsoft's standard architecture for use of components within a process or between process running on the same system. It works across the range of Microsoft product from development environment to the office productivity suite. Databases are also vulnerable to security threats, contain information critical to operation, be it customer contact information, order tracking data, human resource and benefits information, or sensitive trade secrets. Information security professionals must ensure that adequate security control exists to protect them against unauthorized access, tampering, or destruction of data. One of the most common tools used for data protection is database management system, DBMS, relational database management system, hierarchical database management system, distributed database management model, or network data model are used for securing the information within the databases. Database transaction is also a technique used for secure transaction. Transaction in a database is a discrete set of SQL instruction that will either success or fail as a group. It's not possible for part of transaction to succeed while part fail. Consider the example of a transaction between two accounts at a bank. We might use the following SQL code to first add 20,000 to account 1001 and then subtract 20,000 from account 2002. Transaction are rollback. The database restored itself to the condition it was and before the transaction began. Characteristics of database transaction. Database transaction must be atomic. Atomicity means database transaction must be atomic, that is, they must be an all or nothing affair. If any part of transaction fail, the entire transaction must be rolled back, as if it never occurred. The second is consistency. All transactions must begin operating in an environment that is consistent with all of the database rules. Example, all records have a unique primary key. When the transaction is completed, the database must again be consistent with the rules regardless of whether those rules were violated during the processing of the transaction itself. No other transaction should ever be able to utilize any inconsistent data that might be granted or generated during the execution of another transaction. Database transaction has isolation. The isolation principle requires that transactions operate separately from each other. If database receive two SQL transactions that might or modify the same data, one transaction must be completed in its entirety before the other transaction is allowed to modify the same data. This prevents one transaction from working with invalid data generated as an intermediate step by another transaction. Durability. Database transaction must be durable. That is, once they are committed to database, they must be preserved. Databases ensure durability through the use of backup mechanisms such as transaction logs. Multi-level databases also need security, which contain information at a number of different classification levels, must verify the label assigned to user and in response to user request. provide only information that is appropriate. More complicated when considering security for database of such type. It's essential that administrator and developer strive to keep data with different security requirements separate. The mix of data with different classification level and or need to know requirement is known as database contamination and as a significant security risk. Administrators will deploy a trusted front end to add multi-level security. Another way to implement multi-level security in a database is through the use of database views. Views are simply SQL statements that present data to the user as if they were table themselves. Concurrency or edit control is preventative security mechanism that endures to make certain that the information stored in the database is always correct or at least has its integrity and availability protected. This feature can be employed whether the database is multi-level or single level. Concurrency uses a lock feature to allow an authorized user to make changes but deny another user access to view or make changes to data element at the same time. After the change has been made, an unlock feature allow another user to access the needed. In some instances, administrator will use concurrency with auditing mechanism to track document and or field changes. When this recorded data is reviewed, concurrency become a detective control. Other security mechanism includes semantic integrity ensure that no structure or semantic rules are violated due to any query or update by the user. It also checks that all stored data types are within valid domain range, ensure that only logical values exist, and confirm that the system complies with any or all uniqueness constraint. Time and date stamp to maintain data integrity and availability. Content dependent access control focuses on control based upon the content or payload of the object being accessed. Cell separation is the concept of hiding or imposing more security restriction on individual database field or cell. Context dependent access control evaluates the big picture to make it accessible or access control decision. The key factor in context dependent access control is how each object or packet or field related to the overall activity or communication. Database partitioning is the process of splitting a single table or database into multiple parts, each with a unique and distinct security level or type of content. Polyinstantiation occur when two or more rows in the same relational database table appear to have identical primary key element but contain different data for use at a differing classification level. It is often used as defense against some type of inference attack. Thank you for your attention. This concludes our first part of our unit number 7, security issues and related database or data and application securities. Allah Hafiz.